you open our hui for us, please?
Right? I see so then my Nick. How much did you win at the fishing club last week?
Kia
Yes,
koe.
right. I was just waiting for the convo on meeting. All right, kapai. Tēnā tātou e te whanu. Me inoi tātou. Ha tēnei ngā pau matua te kāhui pau o tai whakarongo wānanga. Te pau kā toko, te pau kā hiki, te pau kā eke. Toake nei mātou i te tatau o te whare. Te tatau o te umu tī ramarama. Te umu tipu te whaihanga. Whakatiria te hi o rua kia hihi. Whakapaua te hā o rua kia rārama. Tohungia te hau o rongotangi te wiwini. Rukuhia te wai o rongotangi te wawana. Kia mā ngā pukenga, kia mā ngā wānanga, kia mā hoki mātou e nei pia, e nei tauira, he toi rangi, he toi matua, he toi tangata ki ahaui. Ki te whai au ki te amārama, whano, whana haramai te toki, haumi e hui e tā.
Kia ora, thank you, Josh. Kia ora tātou, hi kia tātou i tēnei ata, i tēnei wā o te raumatu. Welcome to members of the public who are joining us today. We've got a fairly manageable agenda today, but I think there's probably a couple of matters that we'll have a bit of a discussion about in the second part of the meeting. So just to kick off, we have apologies from Tony. Do you have any other apologies? No. Schedule of interests. Does anyone have any additions to their interest register? And any items of conflict in relation to today's agenda? Carl. So the minutes from our meeting, public part of the meeting on 26th of October are at page 8. Does anyone have any changes to those? Just one minor one from me. At 6.2 in my verbal report, I'm not sure that one of the numbers in there is right. I'll just go and double check my notes and get back to you on that one. So other than that, if we are okay to note and approve those minutes. Okay, thank you. Any matters arising? And the action items are at page 12.
Memory, I think we've made progress on those ones. The code of conduct is on the agenda, and there's an explanation there around the virtual diabetes register, because people were wanting to query why those numbers look that way, and it is because of the demographic of the population who get diabetes, and so therefore it came through on those figures.
Does anyone have any questions on the action items? No. Okay. We've got no correspondence in the public part of the agenda, and so the performance dashboard at page 14. Jim, I'll pass this to you. I just want to know it's good to see the continued results for faster cancer treatment.
Yes.
Great that that's being maintained.
Yes.
And I did just have a question with the drop off in IMS. Is that happening around the country?
Yes.
It is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's pretty consistent across Manawatu.
Okay, I'll pass that to you.
Well, I was going to highlight the IMS as well, being down there. It does, every time we go through higher alert levels, we used to go through higher alert levels, not anymore, that does create a drop off, but there is some really good work going on, particularly between Tūranga Health and Hauora Tairāwhiti's outreach immunisation team to do a lot more in-home vaccination for whānau, which seems to be working for that group. So we'll do more of that. And also we want to revamp the way in which we're doing it anyway.
Started that process.
One of those ones that we've started on, and it's difficult to keep the momentum going when you've got
COVID.
Quite a few other balls in the air.
I imagine the infrastructure that's landed in the region because of the COVID vaccination program will be helpful in the long term for this country.
Absolutely. We're doing pieces of work that will support beyond COVID as well. So thinking about how we work with the kaiwhāwhina workforce to be enabled to be COVID vaccinators.
The other area that's very much as well as we've talked about regularly is better help smokers quit in primary care, and the phone and virtual consultations within primary care don't lend themselves so much to having those areas. We have also been talking quite a bit around their cervical screening and breast screening and work that we can be doing, and I think it's useful, and we'll see what happens with Pinnacle's what's it called? Plan? Ariana?
FFP.
Flexible funding plan, yes. There's got some targets in that should see that have got Pinnacle practices concentrating on with that next 12 months or 7 months as the case may be. And I probably should, we'll come back to Ariana in a minute. So I've just, that's the only other thing too there is the ambulatory sensitive hospitalisations have gone up a bit. I think that's probably just the time of the year, the winter, with the increase there. Certainly there's been more, we'll come to that later, more children within the children's ward in the last few months than there was last winter. So that's been a factor in them increasing coming up. That's about all at present.
Does anyone have any questions on the performance dashboard? Thank you.
Aroha mai. Just a couple of questions. When the team goes into the homes for the immunisation, at this stage, do they have to wear full PPE gear, or is that for the future? And then the second question is the cardiology is down to 33% of the target. Is that short resources or whatever?
Okay, so the first one is yes, when they will need to wear PPE when there is virus circulating within the community. So that's that one. And then the cardiology, I suspect that that's 1 out of 3 people in the month that that was able to meet the pathway. I get the statistics on a weekly basis. I can't recall the exact details, but I'm reasonably confident that's around particular needs of those of the 2 of the people. So sometimes people don't go across because there are other clinical reasons, but I can check that one for you, Hickey.
So Jim, the numbers are quite low. You know, the total numbers.
On a month-by-month basis, we're talking there around about maybe 4 to 5 to 6 people in a month having a heart attack in Tairāwhiti. So, but that can vary between months.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Oh, okay. So just
Sandra's got one.
oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Kia ora.
I'm not sure whether anybody can you see, Kim, if we've got our little hand thing up rather than us interrupting you? Or
I can see very little because I've got no glasses on, so I can read this. You're just a lawyer about
apologies. All I was going to ask about was, and I know all the reasons why we're not doing a lot of these things, but yeah, the likes of referral of obese children and things like that. COVID is clearly ruling what we can and can't do just now. I just worry about, and I don't know if there is a plan, and I guess my question is there a plan for general health as COVID becomes part of our reality, much as we'd like it not to be? I just worry that we're losing, we're going to be losing almost 2 years of support for some of these things. And I just wondered whether or not there is a plan in the background, without overloading you, Jim, and your team, if there's a plan in the background for that at all.
Yeah, so a lot of the work that's, why COVID is complicated is because you're trying to deal with COVID on the one hand, but on the other hand is completing the business as usual on the other hand as well. So so for instance, we've had a particular focus on ensuring faster cancer treatment has been maintained over this whole period of time, so that people are not disadvantaged because they happen to get cancer in 2020 or 2021. And the Cancer Control Agency is providing us with regular updates around what that looks like as a picture across the country to make sure that, so groups like that are focusing on the Health Quality and Safety Commission, also looking at that as well to try and keep a handle about what is happening, and we are as well to try and make sure. And planned care would be another example about where we are still with the occasional setback like we've had in the last month or so, trying to maintain that momentum around those as well, so that we people aren't being disadvantaged. But clearly people are being disadvantaged by the fact that the health system is like that, and it's another reason why high vaccination rate is so important, so that we aren't further hampering the ability of the health system to function as it should and provide care and support for people generally within it, rather than just be completely and totally preoccupied with COVID and unable to provide the care that people should, and the preventative care particularly that people need for other conditions. So yeah, it's a juggling act. And but to say, to provide reassurance that we are, focusing in on making sure that those other systems and processes in place, and a lot of the process, the planning now around COVID being endemic within our population is around how do you carry on providing care. And an example would be, again, about that would be in planned care. There is a risk factor in carrying out procedures on people if they become COVID positive. So you're stressing people by carrying out surgery on people, and then if you add in COVID on top of that, then you're placing them at greater risk. So there's work done around how do you reduce the chances of that, and how do you manage that through, and then of course keeping the staff safe from that, so that you can carry on being able to do the cesarean sections and the other things that need to happen on a day-to-day basis as well.
Yeah, and I hear that. I guess it's for us more so than you and your team, Jim, to just keep our eyes up that that our young ones are being thought of, because it's if they're healthy as children, they'll be healthier as adults. So I'll leave it at that. But thank you for that. I just wanted to raise that.
I think you raise a good point, Sandra, and especially in relation to community and public health kinds of things like screening and that kind of thing that has been, falling off over recent months.
Rob. Just a follow-up question to Sandra's. Do we expect some doctors to retire as a result of the stress that's placed on them?
I think that what we're seeing generally in the health system is that people are making decisions around their lives as a result of COVID and their experience in the last 2 years now. And definitely retirement is something that we're seeing more of, with the workforce or the total population of the country is aging. And we're seeing that within health, the workforce is aging. So we're seeing more people retiring, but definitely their experiences through COVID are a factor in people making decisions around it's time for me to retire.
I think across the board too, there's a pulling back of what would normally have been a goodwill activity that people would have extended a further support. They've pulled back personally, as well as with primary care particularly is quite, they're trying to care for the people who are in their system to keep them as well as possible. And so some of the things they may have done previously, they're not.
And all exacerbated by the real challenges of getting international doctors and nurses in over the last 10 years.
The other factor I think too is that families, older people within families are seeing the stresses and strains within for their children, their grandchildren, and they're thinking, okay, I can help out. It's about time I retired anyway, or reduce my working hours, and then I can help. I know that's another factor.
It's all of system thing as well. So what I'm actually seeing is younger people with children and having issues with daycare. So the orders into our education sector is really, especially for preschool, has really impacted our community, and I'm dealing with some of those. So it's across, it's all of system. There is definitely much more pressure within the system, and we are seeing it in our staff.
Can you just share what the issues are for the younger staff?
So
Like with childcare?
yeah, so with regards to our early childcare centres, the vaccine mandate and then the order has had a big impact in our community as well. And some of our Hauora Tairāwhiti staff, and I'm sure other people in our community in general, are not able to rely on that early childhood centres, as in there's one that I know of that has closed down, and we've lost teaching staff in all of these centres. So the capacity is less, and people are needing to make decisions around their own whānau and taking care of their own. I've seen that with a number of people.
Okay. Right. So just briefly from me this month, I think it's would be no surprise that the month has largely been about the vaccination program and our resurgence plan. You would have also seen we've had rather a lot of political interest in Tairāwhiti over recent times, and lots of political visitors. And I must say, the commitment and concern from Wellington about Tairāwhiti is welcome. It might feel like you're under the pump at times, but it is. So we have entered red conditions, and we did expect this. We've been expecting it for quite some time, and I've updated the board a couple of times during the month on how we're going. But I did just want to note that particularly for vaccinations, there's been a really huge effort over the last month. So when I updated the board at our last meeting, at that point we were at 76% first dose and 61% second dose, and we're now at 86% and 75%. So that's a big lift over the course of the month. And from recollection, Jim, when the 90% first came in, we had something like about 16,000 doses to give. And now we have 7,500. So again, that's huge progress over the course of that time, but we are still not there. It does remain possible for us to be double dosed by Christmas. But in order for that to happen, 1,500 more people need to come and get their first dose this week. That's the only way that we'll be able to get to double dosed by Christmas, because that will then give the 21 days and they'll be able to have their doses by Christmas. So anyone listening out there, we do encourage you, if you haven't had your first dose, please come through to one of the many clinics this week, so that you will have double doses by Christmas. Also just really wanted to acknowledge the resurgence plan. It's been a big effort gone on, not just Hauora Tairāwhiti staff, but our wider health sector and welfare sector over the course of the month, and particularly some really intense effort over the last couple of weeks. I'll leave the details of that for Jim to talk about, but just seeing some people around the room who have been involved with that, just to really want to acknowledge that the efforts and the long way this has come over the course of the month. And also just to let the board know, our resurgence planning has been subject to some stress testing. So we've had the Ministry of Health, look at our plans and do a review and stress test how they'll work. We've had workshops that have been going on at a regional level down at the council, led by CEDAM. So all of the different agencies are in and looking at how the whole resurgence response will work. So that's also been really good and helped to shape what we're doing here. What else? haven't really got much of an update on the reforms. So they are just, work on those is continuing. But we do know that Health New Zealand are planning to visit boards and attend board meetings between now and the end of June. So we should expect to be having probably at least one visit from Health New Zealand, one of our board meetings. So we'll again, I think that'll be really good. It'll be good to have them here, or some of them here, to get a first-hand look at Tairāwhiti and meet the team and have the, have an early briefing on, what the issues are we face. So we'll deal with that when that comes along. Now, do we have?
Yes, Naza.
No, sorry. Does anyone have any questions of me? No. Okay, then I'll pass to you now for the Te Waioro Nuku Taimimi Hātia's report.
Kia ora, tēnā tātou, ngā mihi nui kia tātou katoa. A couple of 3 or 5 things I just wanted to talk about. At our last meeting, we received the drinking water bill, which we obviously support, but just to note that the Te Atawhai Trust, they noted they were doing lots of mahi and wanted to front foot the vaccination process, which I thought was quite good. Very good people taking, particularly groups like that, taking ownership of it in the community. We also received the assisted dying proposal, again, supporting that, but just to note in the process to ensure that the spiritual connectivity and spiritual support was also offered as part of that, if we're requested to be invited to be part of that as a DHB. Oh yes, and so as our chairs explained, the iwi, the transition through the reforms is obviously uppermost in a lot of people's minds. We've had a couple of meetings. The latest one was on the 25th of the 11th with the IMPB, 3 discussions with Toitu Tairāwhiti and the EPMC. That's travelling along okay. We're suggesting that the IMPB should, if not legally, but should be in place, or legislatively, I should say, should be in place around April, May. We're promoting it that whoever that group is, operating by the iwi should be in place by then to give them a lead into the 1st of July kickoff. So just getting a run on in that. I probably, the only other thing I did want to note for the board recently in the last week or so, you'll have noted Toitu Tairāwhiti, the iwi, are asking for a cancellation or a postponement of the R&V. And if you think about it in a couple of contexts, Ngāti Pro have cancelled the Pā Wars, which is virtually a week later, thereabouts, and also the normal going up the Maunga on the 1st of July, the new year. So iwi are taking cognizance of the impact of COVID and asking other like R&Vs to also take cognizance of that. And I mean, if you think about it, this traffic light system, virtually all it's, well, not all it's doing, one of the impacts of the traffic light is we're encouraging people in orange to come to places where people are red lighted. In other words, low vaccinated areas. So in a reverse way, we're just adding more impact on top of the red light areas. Is one view of how we look at it. Anyway, I just thought I'd touch on those bits and pieces from our previous week.
Kia ora. Vicky.
I just need to declare a conflict of interest. If there's any discussion on Atawhai, my daughter is the manager there. So.
Wait, kia ora. Sandra.
Morning, one of the questions that I've had is from and I know we're focusing on slightly different things, but for those businesses who spend an awful lot of their year waiting for R&V to arrive, do you know if there is any support for them if R&V, I mean, clearly the concert itself, I think, has got the government insurance. I'm just thinking of, you know, people in our community who spend a lot of their year getting geared up for, you know, 20,000 visitors.
Minister Robertson yesterday did announce business support arrangements.
Right.
I don't have the details of them on hand, but there were business support arrangements announced yesterday.
Yeah, I was watching it on TV too, and that was going to be my response too, is that Grant Robinson is out there saying just tono in for that business support.
Fantastic. No, that's great, because they're all,
I mean, yes, there is that, but then, you know, DHB is also a business.
Oh, 100%. I have no argument with the no argument with the decision that gets made. It's just supporting our city and our people in it. Yeah.
Right.
Well, sorry. I take a call the cancellation of events that bring people from outside of Aotearoa to within Aotearoa. So I'm not being peculiar to R&B. I support moves made to make reasoned decisions about bringing people outside of Aotearoa that might introduce COVID to our community. So tautoko au, kia amiku kai me maha mo taua kōrero.
Just on this, one thing that we probably just all need to remember is that the decision about whether R&V goes ahead or in fact any event goes ahead is the decision of the event organisers and no one else's. R&V can go ahead under red if they do it with 100 people. I mean, that's the reality. And so they will be looking at the conditions that we're operating under and then making their business decisions around that.
Yeah, and I think I just read you directly from the frequently asked questions released yesterday after the Prime Minister's announcement, which said, and under the heading events, it says the question is, can large outdoor gatherings go ahead in red regions such as Rhythm and Vines? And the answer is no. Under red settings, large outdoor events are limited to 100 people. So I think we just need to wait to hear today what the decision is of the organisers. I think they said that they would give after the red announcement yesterday, they would make an announcement within 24 hours.
Okay. No other questions? Okay, Jim, we will pass to you for your report, which is at page 15.
Yes, I'd just like to, I had my highlight of the month there, and I see that the Gisborne Herald did a story yesterday about the same topic. So very good news for the whānau there on the coast who do require dialysis, that there's now a facility at Hauora for them to be able to do that. And what a great Christmas present that is for those people in terms of supporting them. And I just wanted to say thank you to all the people that have been involved in that at Ngāti Hauora, the regional dialysis service at Waikato, and our own team here at Tairāwhiti Health. Tairāwhiti Health. Hauora Tairāwhiti. I must have been slipping the tongue there. Freudian slip. Yeah. Financially, we had a better month, and we managed to come in under budget for the month, which was good, and kind of reinforces the messages that we're giving over those first 3 months of the year, where we had moved that large chunk of the funding out into the second half of the year. So for the next 3 months, we're back to what our original budgeting was, and good that we're able to just come in a little bit under budget for that. And then we've got that 1.8 million odd to come back in the second half of the year. So we'll see how that goes. Just throughput wise there, the pretty average sort of a month there, but we, as you can see on the graphs, the regular graphs on page 17 and 18, the same sorts of trends are there in the fact that we seem to have been able to level off that growth in acute admissions in overall and definitely in medical areas. there was that little bit of a peak in pediatrics that we saw over the winter months and the last week or so. It's been more children there as well, but that's what I was talking before about increasing the ambulatory sensitive hospitalisation rate over that period of time, and even in general surgeries. It seems that we've been able to halt the rise. I've got no idea why on page 19 there's that massive number of people with orthopaedic acute admissions in the month. No idea about what that might be.
It's a huge rise.
It is, isn't it? Makes you wonder about the number, I would say, but we'll get that checked out. Just noting, as you did, Kim, there some good results around faster cancer treatment for the month, and also the immunisation issues that we are having. Planned care, we've taken a little bit of a setback with the effect of going into raising the alert levels and the effect of that flowing through now. So we've dropped behind in a number of areas there, and we'll need to pick that up again. But we're in a much better position to be able to do that now because we've got more capacity on the ground than what we've had before. For instance, we've got our new neurologist who has joined us now, and I understand that he's steadily working through people to be seen. And we've got our second ENT surgeon that has joined the team, so that is a situation for that as well, because those are focus areas that we've had for some period of time. Number of people waiting for a specialist assessment popped up in September, but and we've got some small reduction in October and to the start of November. That number is there, but the concerning one is really more around the number of people who are flying through that or who have got certainty of treatment, which has jumped up to around about the 700 mark all the time now, and we went backwards on that area with losing some operating time over the last couple of months owing to the restrictions on operating while we're at that increased alert level. But we will, as I say, we've got the people on the ground to be able to help to pick that up again now. Flight team report is pretty standard for the month. I just put a little bit of commentary in there around moving and handling, because that was an area that we talked about before, about that came through FRAC, I think, around, and the risk reporting around lack of really training available for that. I think you've actually appointed somebody as a moving handling coordinator to build up the training for us once again. Yeah, I think that's about it. I've got some discussion topics towards the end of there. The clinical leadership for the organisation. We've got now a finalised version around clinical leadership for medical staff that should be released this week to everybody. There's a conversation tomorrow around clinical leadership for nursing and for allied health, about how that may be planned out. We've talked about planned care. Vaccination, just following on from what you talked about, Kim, and the numbers of people that we still are required to get vaccination. We are providing a lot more of that in pop-ups in smaller areas or smaller communities or street areas. That seems to be proving successful. The promotional work that has gone in from the additional funding that was put out to facilitate vaccination for Māori and Pacifica is definitely having an effect. The work of Tūmai, Tairāwhiti can be seen, and Vax to the Max, a really good event in Hauora on Sunday with over 50 people vaccinated there as part of that drive. 120, 130 people vaccinated at Tairāwhiti Marae on Sunday are examples of where that kind of effort is really paying off, and over 50, I think it was about 60 odd people in Tyndall Road street party. So those are proving useful. The other thing about vaccination, of course, is now this week we've got boosters available for people who've had their second dose more than 6 months ago. At the moment, principally that is health workers and other border workers and other essential industry workers. So there's programs on. Today we have started offering boosters to Hauora Tairāwhiti employees and border workers, etc. And we'll catch that up. It'll be interesting to see what the uptake of that will be.
Yesterday.
Hmm?
It was 132 people.
Okay, yeah. So those weren't Hauora Tairāwhiti ones. So primary care, yeah, that will be primary care. That boosting all their staff.
Yep.
Yeah. And then there will be aged residential care, and the older people residents there will also be in that. It will start to come through in that as well. And then there will be the Kamatua programs that Te Rangi Health and Ngāti Porou Hauora has run into December. Tracing and swabbing. We've had the advent of the virus in the wastewater here meant that for a period of time there were quite a large number of people, additional people that required a swab, and we needed to step up some additional capacity in Peel Street to be able to do that. But that initial wave dropped away again, and primary care took over that for a period of time, and then for a while there they needed some more support, so we were able to switch that support on reasonably quickly to be able to assist them. But we've got that switched off at the moment, and they seem to be able to manage that. We've got, Kim mentioned the work that we're doing around resurgence, and we've got a really well developed pathway now around supporting people who test positive in Tairāwhiti and stepwise function. It's based around Manaaki principle. It's very much designed around the outcomes of the review that's just been released of the 2 deaths in supported home care in Auckland. And so we're a jump ahead of that, really. But I mean, it ties in with our whole Manaaki principles here in Tairāwhiti anyway. But it was reinforced by the need to pivot it away. I use the word pivot, notice that, away from a public health response to a Manaaki response. First up is the most crucial factor in good outcomes for people, not going away from the fact that we do still need to track and trace people, but you need to get onto the right relationship with the person and their whānau for a successful outcome for that. So we have the pohiri for the Manaaki hub at Tairāwhiti on Thursday morning at 8:30. Most welcome to join that. So that's where there'll be the base of the health and welfare people, including Ministry of Social Development and Hauora in that as well, and police. Yeah.
There's a very strong positioning that it's community-led, and that was the message that District Health Board received and have responded to. And so there's a very strong community lead with clinical support coming in and quite a good partnership forming in that space, which should be mirrored all the way through.
So I think what in this part of our mission, what's probably really important to reinforce is looking at this from the patient side of things. And with a hub like this, the patient will get a wraparound set of welfare and clinical support. And importantly, on first contact, they will be able to be given the confidence that they need, that they will be properly cared for in both health and welfare terms, and be confident to, from them, stay home. That there won't be any question that they may need to go out to provide for themselves. So I think that's so looking at it from their patient point of view is kind of one of the things that's really important for us to think about.
Yep. Mental health and addictions facility is moving along, isn't it, Craig? Not at a huge pace, but definitely moving along. Oh, I've insulted them now. Yes, it is moving along much faster than that. It's not moving along at all. Yeah, okay, we might talk about that later then. Child and Youth Health, Youth Hub. I don't know if you've received the letter from the ministry saying you can proceed, but we certainly had that message that we can. It's just a case of trying to fit that in, and trying to get a builder would be pretty difficult at the moment. Recruitment still remains an issue for us. Not getting large numbers when we advertise for jobs. We're not getting large numbers of people. It's possibly admin clerical, which seems to be a little easier to recruit to. and so ongoing. We've got 12 or 13 graduate nurses that we have put out offers to, and we expect to start those in the early in the new year, although possibly some before then. Industrial relations, the main issue around that at the moment is making progress on the pay equity negotiations with the nurses, the midwives, and admin clerical, and that's taking quite a bit of organisation to try and keep those things moving, and a desire to get some outcomes for those before Christmas. Oxygen and environmental work, we are expectant that, the ducting work, a lot of the ducting work has started, and one area has been completed in the emergency department, and by the end of the week, we expect the intensive care unit ducting to be completed internally, and then there's some external work that needs to be done, and then move on to Ward 5, and then Planet Sunshine after that. We have got the build work. We've just had a discussion this morning around finalising when that will commence. It was hoped that would be the 6th of December, but we're still hoping to have that. That will require that. The first priority area will be the emergency department. We've also bought the building that is going to add to the capacity of the emergency department. You will see half of the building sitting out alongside the ambulance bay. Unfortunately, when the other half of it was being loaded in Auckland, it was damaged, and so we had a little bit of a setback there, and the other half will arrive this afternoon at 3 o'clock. The two parts will be bolted together. The decking around that to make it an easy transition from one for that to the other, and the hole in the wall at the ambulance bay will go in so that we can start to link everything up around that. And also we are getting a triage hut or a support hut at the front entrance as well. So that is, and also part of that will be arriving shortly as well, to put all those things together. It's and then doing the fit out for the two. We've got one negative pressure room in the emergency department, but upgrading that and adding a second negative pressure room in the donning and doffing area is to be completed by Christmas. So we'll be flying the plane and rebuilding it at the same time. And then site reconfiguration, that's the same thing. Resilience and researchers planning I've talked about, and ED facility I've talked about.
Okay, does anyone have any questions of Jim from his report? Andy. Angled in the glasses.
Yeah, just on the flight team, it doesn't seem too bad at this stage, but if the receiving hospitals got right up to capacity, what changes would be required? Would they do a different level of triaging, or would it just, and the second question on that, would there be reluctance to receive into an orange region patients from a red region?
So there's a lot of the work that's been done around this is around capacity planning across the Tairāwhiti region, and there is actually an overlay now of each of the 4 regions of the country of resurgence planning across them, and ICU capacity is one of the areas in which they are working to ensure that is. So the ICU capacity that we've got here is limited, always has been, always will be, and so we do transfer people out, and so yeah, we will still be able to, even if we're still in red and other areas are in orange, we'll absolutely still be able to transfer people out. And it will be clinical decision making at the time about where's the best place for this person to go. Is it safe and appropriate for them to stay here in Tairāwhiti, or do they need that more complex management of their ventilation? One of the things that we know around COVID-19 is that we're getting better at managing people who are COVID-19 positive. If you do a very good job around supporting people in the community with COVID-19 right from the word go, and that's what the Manaaki principle is there, and you work your way through that, you reduce the impact of the disease, you reduce the chances of people being hospitalised, you reduce the chances of people needing to be ventilated, and then also with some of the new medications that are coming along, we're able to manage people better in terms of who are COVID positive, so that that isn't having an improvement around the fatality rate of disease, not so much on the impact of the disease and long COVID, but definitely fatality rate. So what we do know is that if you've got people with pronounced disease, they do need to transfer out of Tairāwhiti. They do need to go to a unit that is adept at managing people who are ventilated. It's complicated ventilating people who are COVID positive because of the gross impact on their lungs. And so, that's what we would still do, is transfer those people. Getting them there, of course, is going to be a challenge, but it will mean a lot of plane cleaning.
Do you think we've got a reliable kind of air system in place to manage that possibility?
As a country, we transfer ventilated people around the country on a regular basis, and so that won't be any different in relationship to that. Ventilated people are retrieved. We don't use our own transfer service to transfer people who are ventilated. So if the person's disease has progressed to the point that they're actually ventilated here, then they would go over there with a transport ventilator, and the team would come from Waikato. And if there isn't the capacity in Waikato, then the capacity around the country will be utilised to manage people. It's fortunate, I think, for us that there is this talk about the peak being passing in Auckland, so that will be helpful if that were to be the case.
Is it the same for children too? Then?
Children less likely to be ventilated, but if there would clearly if there would needed to be a child here that was needed to be ventilated, then they would need to be transferred out for that to occur. We don't ventilate children here for any, we can intubate children here and commence ventilation, but we cannot keep them here.
Just under emergency planning, you've got another 10 FTEs being recruited for the COVID testing and swabbing. Is there a problem finding these people? Are they redeployment options?
We have previously relied on our more clinical teams to do the work. It's not requiring clinical FTE. Due to the combined work that group is doing, we've gone out to the market. The team will need to have clinical oversight, but we're expecting that it shouldn't be hard to treat. We've got an external provider who does all testing, and the team will go and work with that. So they're underway at the moment.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Moving right along, we have finance report. Craig, if there's anything you want to highlight. I did just want to note though, good number this month, and just to also get a sense of when we'll have a reforecast to the end of the year.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So those are just my two things, but
yep.
If there's anything you particularly want to bring to the board's attention.
Pretty much take the paper as read, yeah.
Also, you, Heather, in case you want to bring anything to the board's attention from Freck's consideration.
We're doing forecasting to year end from now on. Probably just 2 points in the paper on page 36, looking at our 0.7 capital expenditure, well below our budgeted. Board might recall that we put in our capital expenditure program, which was declined, and that had a delta of 2.9 million. We'll be putting a paper up to board end of quarter 2, so it'll be coming through in February. Yep. On how we're tracking, but we can see we're well below our forecast based on our free cash from depreciation. And on page 37 with our last year's financial result reconciliation to board. So as at 30 June, our result presented was a deficit of 7.862. That's improved to our final accounts of a deficit of 6.751. So with all our various wash-ups and along the way, we've improved that result by 1.1 million.
Great. And our, just remind me, our agreed deficit was 8 million?
6 million.
6.
Yeah.
Close.
Mm-hmm.
Close.
Rounding.
Could do another 2.
Okay, any questions on the financial report? No? Okay. Then we'll move on to, there's nothing coming through from subcommittees for the public section. The Code of Conduct policy at page 40, which is updating the whole Tairāwhiti Code of Conduct to be in sync with the Public Services Commission. So is this you taking us through this one, Jim?
Yes. So what we did was we took, if you remember, there was those guidelines from the Public Service Commission around updating their guidelines around expectations of public bodies. And so what we did was we took those and amalgamated that with our current policy, which covers, obviously our current policy covers the board, its committees and our staff and our contractors. So tried to put the whole thing together in one document that was based around those principles that the Public Service Commission expects us to follow through on. And of course, we don't have a problem with them. So yeah, that's what this is.
Great. So does anyone have any comments on this?
Okay.
Vicky?
I just wanted to know for contractors, is it that are away from the site, is it when they're carrying out the business that they're contracted to do?
Yes. Those are the same expectations that we would have on them.
Thank you, that's great.
Okay, so thank you for bringing this through. I think it's important that we have this up to date with current public sector expectations. So the recommendation here is that we approve the updated Code of Conduct policy. Total. Very good. Thank you. That is approved. Does anyone have any general business in this part of the meeting? No? Okay, then we will thank the public who have joined us today. We look forward to seeing you for our December meeting, which is scheduled a bit earlier than usual. We look forward to December the 14th, very shortly. I think it was that last year, almost before Christmas. So we didn't want to skip the December meeting, so it's in just a couple of weeks' time. So thank you, and we'll see you in mid-December, and we'll now move into the public excluded, and we might just take a few minutes break before IT has stopped us from screening.